So the St. Louis Cardinals have been stagnant this offseason for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons that Mo gave at winter warmup was to kind of clear the slate for Chaim Bloom, right? Not have too many contracts on the books or things for him to have to navigate long term. Today, we kind of want to discuss like an ongoing topic on Twitter today of whether or not this is a strategy that the Cardinals are actually implementing to set up Mo's successor in Bloom for the future, or if this is kind of a cover for A, not doing much this offseason, saving money, and B, the new way of Cardinal baseball, which might not be very exciting for Cardinal fans. We'll talk about this on this episode of Deal on the Cards. Welcome back to Deal on the Cards. My name's Josh. This is Sandy. We're down Andrew today, but I think we're gonna have a really fun conversation about this topic, and we'll have to ask Andrew his thoughts as the season goes on, because I'm sure this is going to play into a lot of things. But Sadie, I think you'll remember from winter warm-up, Mo commented on a variety of situations. The Nolan Arenado one seemed to be the top one. It's item number 1, 2, and 3 agenda for him. But there was also some good questions asked about would the Cardinals be interested in exploring long-term deals when it comes to an extension. I think this is how the comment came up from Mo. When it comes to an extension for someone like Brendan Donovan or Ryan Helsley, keeping them around, how much of that is his call versus Chaim Bloom's call? And Mo kind of gave this strategic answer of, hey, my goal is really to clear the slate for Bloom going forward, that we don't want to add significant contracts or make any long-term decisions that's going to impact his regime going forward. And so for Mo, it's to kind of manage this year, to reset, to try and win, but also not to create issues for Bloom on his way out, which we can. Anyways, I'm just repeating what they've said. I'm not giving my opinion yet. So we'll get into that. And then this chatter really started to spark over the weekend because I think Derek Gould maybe got into that comment a little bit more, even though it was said last weekend. And then Bernie put this tweet out today, and it's really fired people a lot up. And so I was going to start us a launching point from Bernie's tweet, and then we'll kind of give our opinions of it. So this is what Bernie said the problem with the St. Louis Cardinals this offseason is their refusal to pick a lane. They don't want to rebuild, but aren't being aggressive about winning. They're keeping walk-year veterans Helsley and Fedde instead of cashing them in for younger assets. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Sandy, do you think the Cardinals are 1 foot in, 1 foot out, or do you think this is a legitimate strategy that they're trying to thread the needle of not doing too much right now so that Bloom has a clean slate moving forward?
Look, it does feel like they're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I think they can be 1 foot in, 1 foot out and also be honest about trying to set Bloom up. Like the reality of it is that this is a transition year no matter what. And so it was going to feel that way no matter what, even if they're trying to clear things for Bloom. But I just don't like the idea of clearing things for Bloom and making moves that don't make baseball sense. Like, you can clear things off the books for him and you can talk about moving on from a Nolan Arenado. But like, also, if that's the case, why not just let Chaim Bloom have control right now? Why not just give him the power to make decisions now? You only get usually 1 or 2 like optimal off seasons to extend a young player. And it feels like this is a good time to extend Brendan Donovan. It feels like if the Cardinals want to get it done, they should do it now. And I think if they wait another year, there's a chance Brendan Donovan, fully healthy next year, is a 4-WAR player for the second time in his career. You don't want to miss out on that. Another great season from Brendan Donovan. He's been close to the All-Star game before. He's already got a Gold Glove. He's already finished in the top 3 in Rookie of the Year voting. Another great year like that could put him out of your price range. Also, you've got arbitration now, so you're no longer buying out those years and potentially saving money that way too. The same goes for a Lars Nootbaar. He's probably cheap. He probably could be had fairly cheaply right now. And let's say he gets healthy this year and has a really good year. All of a sudden, he might be out of your price range too. Instead of re-upping these guys next year, you could be looking at trying to trade them because you're just not going to be able to recoup value otherwise. So I don't know. I get like, oh, we're trying to clear the books for him. But if that's the case, just let him be in control now. The books are already pretty clear for what it's worth. There's really not a lot of clearing to do. And the only clearing that can be done at this point is very difficult to do, obviously. No one wants to take on Nolan Arenado's money. It seems pretty obvious. Nobody wants to take on Steven Matz's money, as far as we know, or the Cardinals don't want to get rid of it. One of the two. No one wants to take on Miles Michaelis's money. Also, a lot of this money is going to be off anyway next year without having to do anything. The only thing that makes sense to me is not adding long-term commitments. And that's fine. Like, yeah, if you don't want to go out and sign, most of the big free agents are off the board already. I understand the Cardinals not wanting to go out and sign Corbin Burnes. As much as I was an advocate for that, and I think when pitchers like that are available and can be had, you should make a play, especially when another smaller market like Arizona is able to get it done. I don't know why the Cardinals can't play in that kind of waters. But I get not wanting to do that in free agency, but come on, like, don't make moves that don't make baseball sense just because you're trying to set someone else up. I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Before I get into my thoughts, I want to thank a couple of the sponsors of our podcast. The first one is 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're located at 9640 Olive Boulevard in Olivet. They're open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday and 9 to 4 on Saturdays. They buy, sell, and trade all sports cards and Pokemon cards if that's your thing. They have the newest selections of packs, boxes, and single players of local players and stars from around the league. So make sure to go check out 314. They've been an awesome partner for our podcast. And the other partner we want to talk about today is Underdog Fantasy. They're our favorite place to play fantasy games, and you're now eligible to play in both Missouri and Illinois, and I think most surrounding states if you're listening to another state as well. You got to check out Pick'em. It's so easy to play. You can pick between 2 to 8 stats of your favorite players and choose whether to go higher or lower, and you can win up to 20 times your money by going 5 for 5. If that sounds like fun, sign up with our promo code CARDS to claim your first free pick plus a first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. We can't wait to see your entries. Obviously, the AFC and NFC Championship were this past weekend. Super Bowl's coming up. Sandy's always got good college basketball picks, so make sure to just DM him, and he'll give you these obscure picks that seem to always hit. And baseball's right around the corner, so there is some baseball to play some fantasy games with here soon. But yeah, I think the also apparently EPA's in the chat, loves Underdog, so no surprise there. You're welcome, Andrew. I agree with a lot of what you said there, Sandy. I don't necessarily think the Cardinals. Well, I think in some ways maybe they're being misleading toward the fan base, and they are not being. They're being disingenuous toward fans, but I also think sometimes they believe what they're saying, even though we all are like, that's
yeah,
stupid.
I think they believe it. I don't think they're trying to lie. It does look, the optics are not good because it looks like what the Cardinals were doing was like, oh my gosh, like plans A, B, and C are out the window. Let's lie to the fans so they all think that this was the plan all along. So they think we're really smart. It's like, that's not going to work anyway. And I don't think that's what they're doing because I don't think fans are dumb enough to fall for that in the first place. And it's clear they're not. Like, if it was a trick, fans are not falling for it. They seem really upset.
Yeah, which DeWitt the Third said that during his media availability at Winter Warm-Up. He's like, even if we tried to pull the wool over fans, like it would work for maybe 0.5 seconds, and then they'll see right through it. I think maybe I'm giving them not enough credit for how cunning they can be, but I just think they believe what they're doing, and a lot of us just could see a lot of holes in their thinking, and honestly, it's frustrating, but I think when it comes down to it, I do think they are putting their foot in two different worlds in a way that is not helpful long term. Yes. It would, like Sonny Gray at the press conference, I love that he acknowledged that like they got to pick a direction, and being in the middle is not great. And I so badly wanted to follow up with him, but then the questions ended and they moved him off, and so it didn't get to. But I want to be like, Sonny, you identify they're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and it seems like you agree from an organizational standpoint within like what they do for player development. That's what they're doing. But like, what does it tell you when your roster is basically the exact same as it was last year, minus letting some guys roll off the payroll? You didn't add anybody via trade. You didn't subtract anyone via trade. You just let the free agents walk, and maybe you'll add a small free agent or two, but that's not in the cards at the moment. Like, how is that not stuck in the middle? And I didn't get to ask him it. I really wish I would have, or someone else been able to, but that's kind of what I'm seeing right now is, like we've talked about at length, Eric Fedde to me is someone that just, it clearly makes sense to trade him now. I don't know why you don't do it. You have plenty of starting pitching options in depth to roll the season if you need to. And again, if the pitching options don't work out, what that tells you is long-term, you still don't have enough pitching, which means long-term, you can't contend. So like if you fail in 2025 because of it, you were going to fail in 2026 because of it. So it doesn't really matter to me that Fedde was some linchpin if he's supposed to be one for you. The Ryan Helsley side of it, I can see the argument, which I don't think this is what they're doing. I think it's honestly right now, if you asked me, are they going to trade Ryan Helsley before the end of the season? I'm going to say no. I think they hold on to him the whole year. But if their intent of holding on to him till the deadline and trading then, I think it makes sense because historically a closer gets you more at the deadline. I just don't know if that's how they're thinking. when it comes to like those type of things of not trading away talent from the roster that clearly is not going to help you in 2026 and beyond, and so it'd be better to get the value now. I think it's foolish. You're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It doesn't make sense. Going toward the long-term contract side of things, when it comes to free agencies, like you brought up Corbin Burns. Now, if the Cardinals had signed Corbin Burns this offseason, I don't think you would have heard me freaking out in a negative way about it. But I don't necessarily think they need to be in those markets right now because, Corbin Burns, long-term, don't know if that's going to be the best contract aging-wise. There's been a lot of health issues that people have seen in him throughout the league. He's been able to overcome them throughout his career at the back and elbow, but like long-term, he's not a guy that a lot of people wanted to invest in, so I'd be really worried there. And investing in pitching in general is really risky, but that's why if you're going to go after a Burns or someone like that, I want to do it in a year when it's like, okay, we're pushing our chips in this year, and so we're going to go for Burns in his prime, knowing that the back end of the contract is going to age poorly, but we're going for it right now because we're in it. I don't want them to do that early, where by the time they're ready to contend, Corbin Burns has fallen off, and now they're paying him $30 million a year to be a number 4 starter. So like something like that, or like Anthony Santander, Pete Alonso, like long-term deals to those guys. I'm like, no, you don't need to do that this offseason, but you sure can't stray away from it in the future. If they get afraid of doing those kind of deals, that's going to be a major issue to me. And it already seems like they are really evaluating the idea of not spending money on guys that have draft pick compensation if they can avoid it. That they really saw, which in some ways is fair, but in other ways I think it's frustrating that losing second-round picks in consecutive years for Contreras and Sonny Gray, and I don't remember if they lost stuff for Dexter Fowler or guys like that in the past, but I mean, they've made the argument that, hey, those were opportunities for us to add to our farm system that we missed out on. And yes, I agree, but also it doesn't mean you should totally stay away from those markets. Should you stay away from Dexter Fowler because of that? Yeah, but should you
stay away from Dexter Fowler because you should have stayed away from Dexter Fowler? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Let's be honest. The average second-round draft pick probably nets like 3 career WAR. A lot of those guys don't even make the majors.
True,
but I understand why the Cardinals would shy away from a guy who can give them that value in one season immediately. Like, I would much rather have that player than that second-round pick probably. Almost, like, sometimes it's not going to be that way, and I get that. Like, Mason Wynn was a second-round pick. He's awesome. I'd much rather have him.
I mean, Gunnar Henderson was the second-round pick. Like, there are good guys in there.
But, like, Mike Piazza was a 40th round pick when they used to have that many rounds in the draft. Like, I can't get behind shying away from that because you're worried about losing that pick. And to be honest, like, if that guy's still on the board in the first round, draft him. If your talent eval is that good and you know that you could identify Gunnar Henderson as a potential all-star MVP candidate in the future, why are you passing on him in the first round? You're already getting the guy that you like best in the class of the available players. So I just don't understand it.
I'm not like, again, I agree with you in terms of it should not hold. And I mean, we don't know for sure. It doesn't mean they're fully out on doing that long term. But if that's what they did, that'd be a mistake because there are opportunities where the cost benefit analysis here is I'd rather have Bryce Harper than that second round pick, just to be honest. But at the same time, like, if you just consistently give up that pick every year, it's like, well, like 3 or 4 years, you've lost 4 selections. So it's like, sure, one of them might not, like 3 of them might not pan out, but one of them might have. And one of them, especially at that number where you can have 6 years of cost control of a guy, like that is a super valuable asset to have. So you want more dart throws, and it also hurts your bonus pool money. So there are less rounds now. You don't get as many cracks at it. And the minor leagues are smaller. Like, anyways, there are other factors to it. So signing a long-term free agent this offseason, I'm like, okay, I don't think they should have played in those waters. So to me, that didn't matter. I actually do we want John Mozeliak signing a reliever to a 2 or 3 year deal, or a Stephen Matz level starter to a 4-year deal and being like, hey, Chaim Bloom, now you have this contract on your books? No. But at the same time, Chaim Bloom is sitting right next to you right now, so you can run it by him.
Decision. Chaim Bloom could just do it. Like, if they wanted to extend Brendan Donovan, Chaim Bloom could say, I want to extend Brendan Donovan. That's
so that is the thing that I'm baffled by when it comes to long-term deals, is that using the fact that they don't want to commit long-term to people right now during this transition year for Bloom as a reason not to extend a Brendan Donovan or a Mason Wynn, or we could talk about the Lars Nootbaar side of it in a moment. That's crazy to me because this is their claim. And so this is where I'm going to say things aren't adding up to me. They claim they don't need to trade Nolan Arenado to free more payroll. which that means they're at a comfortable spot right now. They think they can even add to the roster if they need to. You know what makes more sense to me than adding a center fielder that they can come off the bench that's hitting right-handed, or a reliever for $6-7 million? How about you give Brendan Donovan a $6-7 million year a raise, and you keep him around long term, and you get him on a good deal right now rather than him getting more and more expensive. Same with Mason Wynn. The Lars Nootbaar side of it, they explored a deal at least somewhat, but apparently they weren't super serious about it. And again, there's a number that you would get to with Nootbaar that I'd be uncomfortable with because he hasn't been on the field enough yet. You probably got to wait that out. But like Nootbaar apparently wants to bet on himself and try and hit some home runs this year and play every day. And guess what? If that happens, he's going to cost a lot more money than he did this past offseason. Brendan Donovan is the one that makes the most sense to me, as it seems like both sides are interested in being with each other long term. Seems like Donovan would get a deal done if they could figure it out. You've got extra flexibility. Why not spend that right now? And they're not doing it. And that to me is insane. And so I understand that like the extensions do affect Bloom. So I'm not saying Mo should do that. And it's like
in the room.
Yeah, Bloom's in the room. So it's like if Donovan doesn't, or if Bloom for some reason, which would be crazy, but if Bloom's like, yeah, I don't like Brendan Donovan, then like that's a whole story. And if Bloom's thinking that, which we don't know, then I'm like, okay, I've been giving Chaim Bloom a lot of his flowers and praise this offseason, but that's wild to me. Like,
yeah, I don't like Brendan Donovan.
As a forward thinker, Bloom should be thinking, hey, especially if I'm in Chaim Bloom's seat right now, I would be like this. Do I care if we win this year? Not really, because it doesn't affect anyone's perception of me. No one's going to blame me. But could I use some of that salary space this year to like, instead of paying, like they could front load a Brendan Donovan extension. Like money now is more valuable than money later. So I don't think Brendan Donovan would be telling you no to get more money up front than later. Or again, like you get him to that consistent AAV over time. You raise your payroll now, knowing that he would have cost you $4 or $5 million a year the year after. But again, you don't have to pay him that because you agreed to a deal earlier on. Like you could be strategic with stuff like that. You know what? Guess who doesn't care if Eric Fedde's good for you this year or not? Chaim Bloom shouldn't, because he cares more about how they are in 2026. So why not go get the stuff for him? So I would hope and think Chaim Bloom's thinking that way. And so that's where things don't add up to me, as like if they really care about the long-term future, they really care about Chaim Bloom and giving him the best seat he possibly can. He's going to have 2 full years to look at this player development system. Last year he did the audit. This year he's implementing changes. On the field wise, he doesn't have to take any of the credit for negative credit for things that are happening. They should be investing in the player development like they are, but they should also be doing things at the major league roster that set themselves up for 2026 and beyond. They're not doing it. That's crazy to me. So yes, in some ways, I think they're trying to set up Bloom for success. And in other ways, they might be trying, but they're doing a poor job of it. Or they are trying to serve 2 masters of, we want Mo to go out on top as much as possible, and for him to have a story, like a nice ending to things and not have to just like totally tear it down. But we also want Bloom to be set up for success. And that's ultimately what you're doing, is you're not setting Bloom up for the most success possible because you're serving this other master. That's frustrating.
Yeah, it's just like when you think of any big change in the corporate world, what happens is new management comes in and they have to answer a couple of questions. One of which is there anything I like that I want to keep? And I'm sure Bloom is asking himself those questions. I'm sure he's looking around and he's saying, these are assets that are valuable right now, and I want to keep them around. And I don't understand how Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar don't qualify for that. I don't get it. You need to extend these players. You need to extend Mason Wynn. Another thing is, like, the Cardinals right now seem unwilling to sign big free agent deals and extensions. Can you think of the last good team that refused to do both of those things?
Well, it's like small market teams that that don't keep their players. It's the Pirates of the world and stuff like that.
Those teams, like the Pirates, will extend Paul Skeens. They have to.
Well,
the Pirates paid Brian Reynolds to stick around.
True. I don't like Skeens is one I don't know if they'll actually get done, because I bet he.
I think they'll try. I think they'll try as much money at him as they possibly can.
But you're right though. Like teams do it.
But like the Pirates suck. Okay, let's talk about like.
That's what I'm saying. It's teams that suck that don't do it.
Let's talk about the Brewers that just extended Jackson Chourio. Okay, like why is there no comparable contract for Mason Wynn? They extended him before he even played in the big leagues. Let's talk about the Brewers that managed to keep Hader around for a long time. Let's talk about the Brewers that have been really crafty, and they acquired and then extended Yelich for a lot of money. That was a lot of money they forked.
going back in time, the Cardinals really wanted Christian Yelich, and they panicked, and they went and got Ozuna first instead, which, again, not revisionist history here. When they acquired Ozuna, I was excited about it, so I'm not going to be that guy who's like, they should have waited for Yelich. But they knew which guy they wanted. They didn't wait it out. Guess who waited it out? The Brewers, because like, hey, we want Yelich. So if we don't get Yelich, we'll figure it out. But if we get Yelich, that'd be amazing. They waited out. They trade a package that ends up being basically nothing for Yelich. They extend him long-term to a team-friendly deal. Look who's laughing now, the Milwaukee Brewers. And the Cardinals are like, oh, we got to go from Jason Hayward to Marcell Ozuna to Dexter Fowler. No, we can't go after Bryce Harper because we're waiting straight for Nolan Arenado, and we just gave money to Dexter Fowler. We're fine. And we've got Tyler O'Neill and Harrison Bader come in. That's how the poorer and the non-successful organizations think. Not the forward thinking ones like you're talking about.
I mean, like, how about the Mariners? They're not normally a forward-thinking organization, but they're going to keep J-Rod around for a long time.
Bobby Witt with the Royals, they signed him long-term.
Absolutely.
Which, imagine if they didn't sign him last offseason, he would not be signing. He'd be looking at a $700 million deal coming soon.
And now it's free. Like that is a ton of free money they just made for themselves.
Yeah.
Even the Nationals, okay? The Nationals, when they won in 2019, they lined up a couple of things properly. They managed to line up the window of the free agents they brought in and the players they developed. It was after Bryce Harper was gone, which sucked for them, but they spent big money to acquire the right pitching, right? They went out and they got Anibal Sanchez in free agency. He was awesome during that run. They went out and they got Patrick Corbin. That deal didn't age well, but it helped them win a World Series. So I think they're just all right with it. They went out and they got some of these guys. Like, the Cardinals refused to do it. Even the Rays, okay? They extended Wander Franco, and we know how that's gone for them, but they extended him. They went out and they put their money where their mouth was, and they said, this is a player that we developed that we want to keep in Tampa Bay. And they went out and they extended him.
Yep.
And I don't understand why the Cardinals refuse to do either of these things, because if you're not going to do that, then you have to play like the Dodgers and the Yankees, and you have to go out and you have to bring in serious talent. The Dodgers have added, about $2 billion worth of commitments in the last 3 years, probably, between Freeman, Ohtani, Betts, Glasnow, Snell, Yamamoto. Like, it goes forever, right? And the Cardinals can't play at that level. And the Yankees do the same thing, although Judge is homegrown and extended. But, like, if you're not willing to at least go out there and spend a little bit, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, don't be like the Cubs, where you acquire people in their walk year and then maybe don't extend them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know who they can operate like, though? They can operate like the Atlanta Braves, who mid-2010s, the Cardinals don't need to go. I mean, I hope, and I don't think they need to go on to a couple straight years of losing 90-plus games like the Braves did. But I think people forget they had that stretch there where I think they had the worst record in baseball one year. It was the year Shelby Miller was awesome for them, and they traded him away for Dansby Swanson. They did a smart thing where they traded Jason Hayward away, sold high, and got Shelby Miller and Tyrell Jenkins back. Then Shelby Miller has an awesome year for them, and they sell high on him, and they get Dansby Swanson back. That fits their timeline. Cardinals, I mean, Shelby Miller's not, or Eric Fedde's not who Shelby Miller was, but go trade Eric Fedde away, do that same thing, trade for him and then trade him away. But they had some pretty bad losing seasons. They build up their farm system. They bring in Alex Anthopoulos, who's one of the best executives in baseball. So it's like bringing Chaim Bloom.
And they lock these guys into long-term deals. Now, Ronald Acuna Jr. is getting paid nothing.
Yeah, and the Cardinals don't have a Ronald Acuna Jr. So that's fair. But they do have a couple guys that I could argue.
Ozzie Albies.
They have Ozzie Albies. They have maybe Michael Harris Jr.
Not an Austin Riley.
Yeah, they don't have an Austin Riley. But again, Austin Riley kind of bloomed later.
Yeah.
But can they extend Mason Wynn right now, long term? I don't know if you do it for Jordan Walker, but you could. And these are risky, right? When the Braves handed lately, when they've re-signed Olsen and Riley and guys like that, that's when everyone was like, "Oh, the Braves, they can't keep getting away with these bad extensions." But when they first signed Acuna and Albies, it's Acuna could have flamed out, not been good, and then they signed this guy to an 8-year, $100 million deal. So there were worlds where that deal did not work out.
And those deals do fail sometimes.
Because Paul DeYoung, it's if he had continued to ascend to be the player he was, that would have been a bargain contract for the Cardinals. Ends up being a not good contract. But even in that range, that's not going to kill you if those deals don't work out. So why not go after a Ronald Acuna deal, but why not give that Ozzie Albies deal to someone right now? Why not sign Lars Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan, Mason Wynn long term? Because if you hit on some of those things, it gives you that payroll flexibility to go and trade for a Chris Sale or to sign Marcell Ozuna. Or I'm trying to think of some of these guys that the Braves brought in to supplement their team. They traded for Matt Olson when they lost Freddie Freeman. Yeah, Ronaldo Lopez,
Sean Murphy. They paid Travis d'Arnaud for a number of years before he walked.
Yeah, and then the Braves, they have a top 10 payroll, but they're never the top 5. So
No,
like they show that you
controlled.
can draft, develop, and spend accurately in a market like St. Louis and be super successful.
I mean, Atlanta's a lot bigger than St. Louis, but the Braves are publicly owned, which is unique. And so it's not just an owner that can throw money around. It's a little different.
And like true, Atlanta's a bigger city than St. Louis, but like market comparability, it's not like it's not the discrepancy to LA.
And they're not the biggest player in town either. Like they have to compete with the Falcons. So it probably is fairly similar in terms of footprint to St. Louis.
And I think, like, sure, if someone wanted to argue, or the DeWitts want to argue, Braves pull in more money, whatever, I won't fight them on it. But I think they're a comp, and like you can aspire to be like the Braves. And but here's the thing: the Braves did smart things, and they made hard decisions early on when they needed to. Again, like they held on to Freddie Freeman, but they traded away other members of their core. Like, imagine being a Braves fan when Shelby Miller, they got him and he was awesome for Jason Hayward. But first of all, they get rid of Jason Hayward, who was a fan favorite, bring in Shelby Miller, who was awesome. Then they trade him away for Dansby Swanson, who was the number 1 overall pick that year, but still, it was like a prospect. And it's like, that was kind of some hard, lean years. But like, man, like that helped build a championship core. They made hard decisions. And the Cardinals aren't doing that with the Fedde or Helsley right now. And they're just letting guys walk and shaving money. It's just frustrating.
They're not, like, these guys aren't even like Eric Fedde's not a fan favorite. No one even knows what Fedde is in St. Louis. Like it's not like you'd see Eric Fedde in line at a CVS and you'd be like, oh my gosh, it's Eric Fedde. Like most people in St. Louis wouldn't recognize him, you know? I don't understand it. I really don't get it. And if they're not going to play either one of those games, they're going to continue to lose because you can't win without it. You can't, because the teams that refuse to do both of them suck. Seriously.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like I'm frustrated with what the Cardinals have done. I think they're playing both worlds too much. I don't think they're just lying to people and saying like, oh, we're trying to set up Bloom, but like in reality, they just don't want to spend money. I think sure, they don't necessarily want to play a role in it, but like it's a fair point from Rally Squirrel here. Like we don't know how much of a role Bloom's playing into this. We just don't. And here's the part that I don't like. I would really question Bloom's decision making here if he thinks holding on to Fedde makes sense. Like that's a specific one. Or again, I actually like holding on to Helsley till the deadline, but like if they don't trade Helsley at the deadline, I'd be like, okay, Bloom, why, when you're being gifted this reset year, does it make sense to you not to trade Ryan Helsley? But the Nolan Arenado situation makes perfect sense for me. It's exactly what Bloom stepped into when he was in Boston, except he had to trade away an actual generational player who was actually in his prime, which Arenado's not in his prime anymore. So it's definitely different. But anyways.
Do you think that there's a chance Bloom just really trusts his draft that much? And like he says, I want the comp picks. Like, I don't want to lose, stuff like that. I don't know. Do you think he's that interested in a comp pick for Ryan Helsley? Because if the Cardinals keep Helsley, they'll issue him a qualifying offer. He won't take it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's something we've talked about before. But
and I would much rather have someone that's already an intriguing, like you could get a top 100 prospect for Ryan Helsley at the deadline for sure.
I guess it would be it's hard because now we're predicting the future here. And yeah, like Andrew said, if you're watching now, like and subscribe, helps the channel a ton. We really appreciate the support. Also, you just did a fun interview with Cooper Jerpy the other day. So
yeah, that was awesome.
Cream, so check that out. But here I do want to give Bloom a chance a little bit. And so like with his drafts, like, dude, go look at those Boston drafts.
Yeah, they're really good.
Go look at what he's done in Tampa, and you marry that with what Randy Flores has been able to do too. So if Randy Flores gets to stick around, like that dude can draft. And so I don't think that's a huge deal to me that you hold on to that. I think the part that we can't know right now is what kind of offers do the Cardinals get at the deadline? And like, here's what they may weigh. They may say, okay, like we're getting like whatever their internal evaluation is of a comp pick, that will determine if they trade him, or that should determine if they trade Helsley or not. If whatever offer they're getting is better than what they think a comp pick could give them, then you make the trade. But if it's pretty comparable and they prefer to have the extra bonus pool and the extra draft selection, then I see why they do that. Because because like this year they're entering into the draft where they got a competitive a balance pick. So they have a second round pick, first round pick, and then a comp pick. So they have like 3 picks in the top 75 when last year they had 1. And so like I think those things do matter to a Bloom when he hits on a Christian Campbell and a Roman Anthony and some of these other guys later in the draft.
Sure.
And he's also hit on Marcelo Mayer and Kyle Teal early in the draft. So yeah, I do think that's fair. And like they could see that as Eric Fedde. And honestly, that would be the reason you don't trade Eric Fedde right now, is if they have full confidence that he's going to put together another good year next year and he's going to be looking at a 3-4 year deal in the offseason at 28 AAV, then it's like that's a comp pick guy.
I don't know if he would reject a comp pick though if he has a mid-year.
Well, so that's the thing. Like you're risking he having a mid-year, which is why I would trade.
Helsley will deserve a comp pick no matter what.
Yeah, that's why I would trade Fedde right now, because I see worlds for sure where he doesn't perform up to expectations this year. He's not worth the comp pick anymore. With Helsley, like you said, I think it's very like unless he has a terrible injury or he just blows up next year, he's worth the comp pick. And so I get the risk of that.
If Helsley's not worth the comp pick anymore, just extend him at that point. Like
True.
Reunite with him in the offseason and say, hey, we'll give you another year here. Give him 1 for 12 at that point.
Here's the thing, though. Based on how they've treated him lately, don't know if he's going to want to come back to St. Louis. So, yeah.
That's the other thing. Why, if the Cardinals are at a place where they're comfortable payroll-wise, why do they feel like they have to fracture relationships with players? This is the one that, again and again, they do this, and it never makes sense to me. It's always ridiculous. I wonder how much value, like, it's hard to quantify this, and I know I'm probably speculating here, but I feel like it does not help a player when the Cardinals squabble with them over $150,000, which is literally pocket change to the Cardinals organization. It is not money that actually matters. And when Jack Flaherty is asking for a very small raise during his pre-arb years, I don't know why you don't just say, hey, you almost won the Cy Young Award. We'll give it to you. I don't get it. I don't understand why you would do that, because I wonder how much value they actually lost out on through that. I wonder how much worse it makes a player when they feel like they're having to fight with their own team. I wonder how much less likely it makes them to pursue a reunion at some point too, how much less favorable the terms of an extension become very quickly when you do stuff like that. I wonder how much it contributed to the Tyler O'Neill drama, to the Jack Flaherty drama, the Ryan Helsley drama, frankly, that we've had at times.
Yep.
I wonder how much it impacts those things. And yeah, I mean, when you tell a player, like, especially with a Tyler O'Neill or Ryan Helsley, with a Ryan Helsley, where you're telling him to do something, which, like, what the Cardinals wanted him to be is his 2022 self, where he's getting these 5 and 6 out saves, which is the most valuable type of closer. Someone that can come in the 8th inning, lock down the last 5 batters of a lineup. That's the most versatile. That's the best version of a relief pitcher possible. And when you're telling him to do that, and then you're not rewarding him because he didn't get enough saves, I don't understand that. You're telling him to do something that makes him less valuable in the arbitration system, but more valuable to your team. And then you're punishing him for doing the thing that you're telling him to do. And you're not, like, he can't go to the arbitration council. It's terrible. And I wonder how much that impacts him as a player. I think that's part of the reason he's only pitching the 9th inning now, instead of being his best, most valuable self for the club. Like, if that happened to me, absolutely, I would never come in a non-save situation. I would say, I'm going to save 45 games this year. We might only win 45, but I'll save all of them. And I'm not going to pitch on another day. Try me at that point. Yeah. They're so cheap in the weirdest ways. And if the Paul DeJong extension is what keeps them from extending young players, see you later.
For sure. Which, I mean, to be fair, you could look at the Colton Wong contract wasn't bad, but at the end of it, like, it wasn't money that they necessarily wanted to keep around. Carlos Martinez's deal ended up not aging well at the end. They had declined the last few club options, but, like, for the most part, he was good during it, or it was worth the risk at the very least, for sure. So I don't know. I mean, I guess if you were to rank right now, like, what are the players that they should be looking to extend? Like, who's the top of the list? Like, who are the guys that you for sure think they should extend right now if they could? Because there's a lot of the guys they could extend, but, like, what are the guys that you're like, right now it's dumb not to go to the bargaining table with them?
Brendan Donovan is number 1 for me, because you don't have enough years left to keep thinking about this with Donovan. Like, Jordan Walker, I think you could get, he could be had cheaply compared to what he normally would be, but I don't know if Walker would want to sit down for an extension talk right now. I don't know if it'd be good for his psyche as a player either to be talking about that. Like, he just needs to go play baseball this year. And they can talk about it next season, and maybe you miss out on it. And he's awesome this year and he's way more expensive. That's fine. Lars Nootbaar, I think, makes some sense, but I wonder if his window's already passed. Brendan Donovan, you're in the prime of the window right now. And I think you have to do it because that was year number 3 out of Donovan, right? So this is his first arbitration year. And Brendan Donovan's already going to be getting more expensive. And again, this is a guy whose stats they jump off the page to me. And I don't understand why players around the league or fans around the league don't seem to value him properly. But like, he's a 116 OPS plus player over his career. Okay. That's 1,300 at bats. That's a huge sample. Brendan Donovan is a good hitter at the big league level. It's proven. He is an above average hitter, and guys like that do not grow on trees. The Cardinals have had a lot of players come up and not be above average hitters. We gave Jordan Walker flowers for his rookie season. It was a 116 OPS plus. That's Donovan's career. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, he doesn't have the power that a guy like Walker or maybe Gorman has, but the on-base numbers are incredible. And I think that is potentially more valuable because of how well that'll age, how long that'll be a viable tool for him. And also, he doesn't slump. Like, Brendan Donovan doesn't slump the way other guys do because he's still getting on base. You know, like Brendan Donovan, he has months where his batting average falls for sure, but he still draws walks. So he slumps a little bit, but he doesn't have those Gorman-esque or those Walker-esque slumps where he's not doing anything for you.
Yeah, this year was a little bit weird though, because his on base percentage this year was actually lower than it had been, and he did add some power, and so you did see Donovan slump a little bit more than he usually does.
Sure.
But he's a guy that, and also beginning of 2023 he slumped, but then he like was on fire through like the middle of May through the end of July, and the only reason he stopped hitting was because the Cardinals made him stop. They put him on the IL because of his elbow injury. So, like, honestly, like, Donovan's career numbers could be even better right now if he had gotten to finish that season. And then I think hopefully what he learned from this past year is that something he's talked about is he needs to be more aggressive at the plate because pitchers have given him things to hit early in counts, but he would take so often to start counts that do some of that first pitch swinging when you see a pitch that you can hit. Otherwise, like, don't get away from what you're really good at, because he's top 15 in baseball since he debuted in on-base percentage. Like, that's an elite trait that he has when it's on. It's great that he's adding the power in, but he shouldn't add so much power that he sacrifices what's a truly elite trait for him.
Yeah.
So, like, but yeah, I agree. Like, a Brendan Donovan's a huge one. And I think the other one right now I think it'd be dumb not to try to extend is Mason Wynn, just because how stinking valuable he is. And, like, again, do I think he's going to end up being one of the top shortstops in all of baseball and be like a superstar? Maybe not. Like, I think that's probably that's obviously the highest range of outcomes, and probably not the thing you should bank on. But, like, even with just past year, he's almost a 4-win player as a rookie. And if he continue, and honestly, at the beginning of the season, he didn't grade out great defensively. So, like, again, errors, all that kind of stuff. Like, if he continues to become an elite defender, which he's basically already and it just becomes maybe the best shortstop in all baseball defensively, and then maybe is like a 5 to 10% above league average guy, like, that's a super valuable player as a floor, knowing that he could be a superstar.
Well, that's what Yachty was as a player for the Cardinals for a long time.
Which I won't, even Mason Wynn's highest abilities, how I can put on Yachty's level.
No. I'm just saying the archetype, though. It's a similar archetype of player where Yadier Molina was an outstanding defender for a really long time, and the Cardinals continued to get value out of him. And once, like, because if you look at the first 5 years of his career, he was a terrible hitter. And once he figured it out, like, in the batter's box, he went from, like, oh, that's a nice player, like a Mathis type or a Martin Maldonado type of player, to, oh, wow, like, he could be a Hall of Famer someday. He's one of the best catchers we've ever seen. Yeah. And, like, Mason Wynn's not going to be that. I'm not saying Mason Wynn's going to have a Hall of Fame case or anything. I'm just saying it's the same type of thing where you can get so much value out of a guy if he's both an above average hitter and the best defender in the league at his position. And the Cardinals have that, potentially in Mason Wynn.
Yeah. Oh, two things real quick, because Riley Score makes a good point, but I want to even double down on it. He says, like, Mason Wynn could be their Braves Dansby Swanson. Here's a difference, though. Dansby Swanson did not post a WRC plus above 99 until his 6th full season. Yeah. So he did do it in the short 30-game sample size that he debuted, and he did do it during the 2020 60-game season. So, like, sure, that's fair, but a full season of work, Dansby Swanson never put up above league average hitting until his his free agent walk year. Mason Wynn already did that as a rookie. So, like, I think Mason Wynn could be even a better. I mean, he's already better than Dansby Swanson. I don't think you can argue that.
I would agree with that too. And Dansby Swanson went back under 100 again this year.
Yeah. So. The other thing, though, is what about Kareem with the JJ extension before MLB debut, like Churio? I mean, if they think they've got something in him, It's a risk. It's always a risk. Like Derek Gould in his chat even put it out there. It's like people are like, oh, the Cardinals always come into the season with what ifs. Like I do think they have more what ifs and they're banking on more than teams are, but every team is. Like in theory, the Dodgers are like, we are banking on the fact that if Shohei Ohtani continues to be healthy throughout his entire career, that's gonna be a great contract. But what if Shohei just doesn't stay healthy? Then you paid $700 million to a guy who's, or like Yamamoto's on a 15-year deal as a pitcher. It's like, is he going to stay healthy or 12-year deal? One of the two. Like these are ifs that everyone works with. That's a worthy risk to me. Like maybe JJ doesn't end up being a great hitter, but if he does, like JJ's the kind of player they're not going to be able to keep around long term if he hits the ceiling because they don't pay those kind of contracts. So you got to extend guys like that early so they stay in St. Louis. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I just wish they would do it. I wonder what scares them away from it, though. Do you think it is the Paul DeJong contract? Like, is that really? It wasn't that big a deal. It wasn't a ton of money, and they acted like it was so much money.
Yeah,
continuing to play him, acting like they had to trade him, then trading him for nothing for like the tiniest amount of salary relief, which I don't even know how much salary relief they got in that trade to the Blue Jays. I mean, they really were so dramatic about the whole situation. And it felt the same way with the Colton Wong deal. And Colton Wong wasn't even bad for the Cardinals. He was probably worth about what he got paid.
Yeah.
It wasn't a bargain, right? But Colton Wong had some really good years, and he had some years where he wasn't awesome. But it was probably about worth what you were paying him. And neither of those guys broke the bank.
Yeah. Which also, I mean, I did to a comment here. I don't think a weather hole extension should happen today, but like after the season or like before the end of the season, if he's performing and close to St. Louis, then it's like, okay, you explore that extension before he makes his debut, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't know if it's DeJong specifically. I think maybe it's a combination of how some of these young guy contracts have gone. Because again, it's Carlos Martinez, it's Colton Wong, it's Paul DeJong. There's someone else they extended young, Matt Carpenter. They extended young, but obviously that worked out. But then the second Matt Carpenter extension was bad, and the Miles Michael
that bad. Like that's the thing.
The second one was
bad. It was bad, but it's not like the albatross that we see other teams have on their books. It's not like a free agent deal that went wrong.
Yeah, but like at the same time, they gave it to him a year early. And then every year of that, I think it was a 2-year extension. And I think it was like an 18-20 million AAV.
Sure.
Let's see. So 2 years, 39 million. So it's almost a 20 million AAV. In both of those years, he was terrible. So like in a market like St. Louis, 20 million is not great. Stephen Piscotty. But it's like I think things like that. But then even then, it's like JJ Weatherholt's a different animal than Stephen Piscotty or Colton Wong or even Carlos Martinez was definitely Paul DeJong. Paul DeJong was the guy who just bloomed at the major
Martinez, like there were reasons that didn't work that weren't just this guy's not a good player. Like Carlos Martinez
injuries.
He was a borderline like 1A type of pitcher.
Yep.
You know, he was really good for a few years. And I don't know if we appreciate properly how great he was. And then also how great he was as a closer in 2019 when he came back. If he'd just been able to stay healthy and maybe get out of his head a little bit, Carlos Martinez still could be around. You know?
True. Which, I mean, again, Adam's making a point like the extension's being kicked down the road till Bloom's in charge makes sense. But at the same time, it's like Bloom is, I mean, he's not fully in charge, but he's right there. So if he likes Donovan, and just extend him already or Newbar or whoever.
Maybe the way they should do it is like, if it's a deal that's going to affect Bloom, you talk to him right now.
Which I think is what they're doing.
For the Cardinals. Like he's there.
But just the side of it too, it's like, if they really have cut they cut payroll a ton. And they want to get payroll back up one day, but they want to be strategic about it. And they've claimed this. They could have come out and said, hey, we're still struggling financially, need to cut more money. And even then we could disagree with them on it. But they've said, yeah, we're okay if they don't trade Nato, especially if they trade Nato and they don't use that extra space to extend a Donovan or something like that. It's like, what are you doing with this extra space? Like, it's just competitive from a competitive advantage. It makes no sense. Like, this is like the A's aren't doing this, but they kind of did with Brent Rooker. Like, they had to get their payroll up to 100 million. And so one of the ways they did that was extend Brent Rooker. Like, the Cardinals can do something like that right now and make a lot more sense than going out. To me, that would signing Donovan to extension, win to extension, guys like that makes way more sense than going after X free agent right now. But oh man, where we're at. So hey, but if we were sitting with Mo right now, he'd probably just be like, "Well, it all started when Oscar Taveras," and it's like, all right, that was
you guys just all need to have a little patience. It's a virtue that lacks these days. Like, that's the type of thing. that you talk about.
Brutal. And when you hit us with your patience again at this winter warm up, I was like, man, he loves that word. So, oh well. Anyways, well, this has been a fun conversation. And honestly, it's been one of the things I really like about this one is you look in the comments, and I think in general, everyone kind of seems to to be pretty frustrated by how things have happened, but people see it from different angles because it's kind of complicated, it's nuanced. And some people are like, hey, they should go out and spend money now. And some people are like, hey, they should wait on extensions or they should extend people now. Some people think they should trade guys now. Some people don't think that's the huge deal. Like there's a lot of different opinions on it. So it's a fun topic to discuss. And again, some of it's going to be like 2 to 3 years from now, we'll get to look back on this offseason and grade it, right? Like maybe they were right to hold on to Helsley and Fedde. Like maybe we're wrong. Or we will say they were wrong and they were wrong, which is what I think will end up happening with Fedde specifically. Or like, again, we want a Donovan extension. Maybe he ends up being terrible this year and falls off a cliff. Like, who knows? That's the beauty of baseball is we get to see what the results happen on the field. So yeah. Anyways, any other lasting thoughts on the way out?
Do you think they'll reach an extension with anybody before the end of this season?
Maybe, but I'm still probably lean no based on how they talked about
not this offseason.
Spring training's historically a place where they talk about extensions quite a bit. So like it'd be interesting to see if they open up, especially if they trade Nato. Maybe that's one of the things they're waiting on. It's like if we trade Nato, then we'll look at the free agent market for that reliever or right-handed bat that wouldn't cost a lot.
Just put the money into a extension.
Like which I would prefer that.
Market. I don't care. I think them bringing in a right-handed center fielder who's going to platoon a little bit. Like, I don't care. I don't think it'll be interesting to me at all. And I don't think I don't think I'll care at all if they bring in a reliever because then it's just less opportunities for young relief prospects who, like a Matz. I'd like to know what he has. I'd like to see him pitch at the big league level this year. Or Andre Granillo, who's been in AAA for 2 years now. Like, I'd like to see what he has before we just go sign some random reliever who is not going to be interesting and won't be on the team in 2026.
Yeah. We'll have to talk about this soon, more so. We kind of alluded to it on the roster construction episode last time, so you can hear some of our thoughts. But Derek Gould and chat today was making it seem like they're at least going to give Nootbaar a chance to win the center field job. So
makes me happy.
Yeah, I am happy about that too. Also, the merch side of things, I think it's a commonly misunderstood thing. The player merchandise, like jersey sales and stuff, that's revenue shared. So like, it's not like the Dodgers don't just get all the money they sell from Shohei Ohtani jerseys or Yamamoto jerseys or Cardinals and Donovan. Like that's spread throughout baseball. So I don't think that's a huge deal. There's other ways they can market players and make money off them for sure. So it's not just that much, but also like, even if he doesn't sell merch, like again, he's clearly a valuable player. He's a versatile player from a baseball team construction standpoint. There's a reason why Yankee fans and Seattle, like Derek will talk about today, like the Cardinals keep like hanging up the phone on teams and they call Donovan. Like they don't want to trade him. They see the value. And he's a leader in the clubhouse. He's a guy that you want to lead this next generation of Cardinals players. So I want that kind of guy around long term. So yeah, anyways, we'll be back on I think Thursday to talk more Cardinal baseball. We've got some guests lined up for next week that we're pretty excited about. Always appreciate the support on the podcast. Like and subscribe. It helps the channel a ton. Let us know your thoughts on if this is a true reset or if they're kind of covering for some things. Yes, go watch that Cooper Jerpy interview from Kareem and Sandy. That was honestly great job by you guys. Seriously, it was really fun to listen to.
Really fun chat. Cooper was awesome. And if you don't know anything about him right now, go check it out. He's a really exciting prospect. Funky delivery from the left side. Kareem's really excited about his stuff. We think he could potentially factor into the bullpen this year, and he'll definitely have a crack at the starting rotation in 2026 if he's healthy this year. He strikes guys out. He induces pop-ups at an elite rate, which I think is really funny and really cool. So we're very excited about him.
Yeah. And I like it. Like, I mean, when you listen to guys like us, like me and Sandy, it's like we can get overly hyped about prospects sometimes. And it's like, whatever. And we try to temper expectations. But like when you see a guy like Kyle Reese be like, this guy would be the Cardinals' top prospect if he had stayed healthy.
Yes.
Like this guy he's really interesting. And so like, I'm not trying to tell you you should think he's better than JJ Weatherhole right now, but Cooper Jerpy is a name that not enough people know. He's kind of flown under the radar because of injuries and such. You need to get to know Cooper Jerpy, and Sandy and Kareem helped us do that. So go check out the interview. Again, always check out Deal on the Card stuff. We've got, if you want to listen to some of Mo's comments or DeWitt's comments for winter warm up or Brendan Donovan's interview, which was awesome. We've got that up on the channel. and anyways, all other kinds of content too. But like and subscribe helps channel a ton. And we'll be back next time. Peace.